Is the Lebanon and Bahrain researcher in the Middle East and North Africa Division of Human Rights Watch. She joins me from Beirut. Hello there, Aya. Now, you just heard me recap what's unfolded this morning in Lebanon. First of all, what's your take on what's happened, and particularly from a civilian perspective?
What happened today was a show of force by Hezbollah and its allies, essentially giving the Lebanese public a false choice, either stability without justice or justice but no stability. This is just the latest in a series of attempts by Hezbollah and the ruling elite to undermine, obstruct, and block the domestic investigation into the Beirut blast because it had hit too close to home. The judge leading the Beirut blast investigation, Judge Bittar, has refused to abide by the red lines set for him by the political establishment. And he has instead tried to charge, summon, and prosecute very high-level political and security officials, which is really unprecedented in Lebanon. And so the outcomes of this case and the implications of this case will go far beyond just justice for the Beirut blast, but it will really change the legal system in Lebanon. It does have the potential to show that these high-level officials and political parties are subject to the rule of law, not the culture of impunity. And this is something that the political parties, led by Hezbollah again, are fighting very hard against.
So what are the broader implications on the political system then? I mean, how do we escape this cycle of so-called corruption?
That's the million-dollar question. People have been protesting on the streets for almost 2 years now against the corruption and mismanagement of the Lebanese political class. But unfortunately, instead of engaging in reforms and fighting corruption, we've just seen the entire political class band around itself and protect itself from prosecution and from accusations of corruption and from the public. We've seen absolutely no reforms carried out in the country. We've seen the situation deteriorate day by day. We've seen none of these individuals be held accountable for the Beirut blast, but also for the crimes of financial mismanagement and corruption that has literally impoverished 80% of the Lebanese population. How does this system of corruption change? I mean, our Human Rights Watch has really been advocating for justice for the Beirut blast as a focal point, as a rallying point for future change in Lebanon. We've really seen the battle over justice for the Beirut blast as a flagship battle that will determine the future of the country. Is the country going to continue to be held hostage by armed militias and political parties who don't care about justice and who see Lebanon as their personal playground? Or are we going to start holding them accountable for their decades of corruption and abuse, beginning with the Beirut blast, but also extending to other crimes that they've committed and other human rights abuses that they've committed against the Lebanese public?
Aya, we're seeing that Reuters is reporting that the US will offer an additional $67 million to support the Lebanese army. Is that going to help? And what power does the army actually have in Lebanon as it stands?
The army is one of the few institutions in Lebanon that is widely seen as non-sectarian. And so it has been the recipient of very large amounts of international aid in the hopes of the army being able to be a bulwark against the influence and the power and the arms of Hezbollah. However, we have seen that the Lebanese army has at times either failed to protect the Lebanese public from armed attacks by groups like Amal and Hezbollah, and we documented this extensively during the October 2019 protests. And we've also seen in instances like today where the Lebanese army did not act fast enough and was not able to prevent armed groups launching civil strife in the middle of a busy residential area. So there, any money going to the Lebanese army needs to be conditioned on investigations into alleged human rights abuses of the army and trainings, human rights trainings of the army to ensure that they are constantly upholding the rule of law and they're not failing to protect the Lebanese public from abuses committed by the army or abuses committed by non-state armed groups.
Let's see how the days and weeks unfold. Thank you for your insights. Aya Majzoub is the Lebanon and Bahrain researcher in the Middle East and North Africa division of the Human Rights Watch. Thank you.
Thanks.